Monday, February 10th, 2025, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. We're going to look at the Fed today. There's talk that DOGE, with the help of Ron Paul, is going to audit the Fed. I think they should go a step further if they do audit the Fed. After they audit the Fed, they need to end the Fed, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And of course, there's so much going on, it's difficult to keep track of everything. We've seen that China has imposed tariffs on the U.S. The U.S. has imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum, or aluminum, as the Americans call it, 25%. I think Canada will get hurt from that tariff. They're the biggest exporter of steel to the United States and one of the biggest exporters of aluminum or aluminium to the United States. But the other thing I wanted to note is a quote by Lenin, because this is how it feels right now. He said once, there are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. So I think that's where we are at. Last night during the live stream, we were talking, Rafi and Clive, and we don't agree on everything about what's happening. But Clive and Rafi said it's shocking that they're actually doing what they said they're going to do, especially as it pertains to USAID. I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. The Fed would be huge. So, and why am I talking about this? Well, because ever since I started this channel back in late 2015, my mission has been to expose this financial system, monetary system, central banking system that we have. I've been a proponent, along with the Austrian School of Economics, of sound money, gold and silver, of no central banking, small government, laissez-faire, free markets. My wife and I went to the Austrian School of Economics conference at the Mises Institute back in 2002. It was the 20th anniversary. And I had the pleasure of meeting Ron Paul, and I have interviewed Ron Paul here on this channel before, maybe once or twice. I'll try to find the link to my interview with him, and I'm going to put it up here in the cards. And yeah, Ron Paul, he's been a champion of bringing transparency to the Federal Reserve, and also pushing for the end of the Federal Reserve for many, many decades. And it's really good to see that people like Elon Musk are actually giving him the time of the day. And this is what I mean here. As you can see, this is from X, and it's posted by Elon Musk. Prior to this post, a lot of people were saying, oh, this is just speculation that DOGE is going to audit the Fed and that Ron Paul is going to help. But actually, Elon Musk came out and said this will be great. Notice he didn't say this would be great. So, and the post that he reposted said Elon Musk is considering to have Ron Paul head up an audit of the Federal Reserve. And it's from Tara Bull, at Tara Bull 808 on X. Have to give her credit, of course. So the other thing I would say, yes, audit the Federal Reserve, and also find out and tell the American people who are the owners behind each regional Federal Reserve Bank. Because if you didn't know, the structure of the Federal Reserve System is that the Federal Reserve Board in Washington, D.C. is a government agency, but the 12 regional banks are all private banks. So it's a public-private partnership, which, of course, is fascism. And I think the American people and the world need to know who's behind the Federal Reserve. Yes, audit the Fed, and then abolish it. It was created by an act of Congress, so the president, I don't think, can sign an executive order and abolish the Fed. It has to go through Congress. This is very encouraging. And you might ask, how can we get along financially and economically without the Federal Reserve or a central bank? Well, the United States didn't have a central bank from 1836 until 1913, the year that the Federal Reserve Act was passed, and it was perfectly okay. My hope is that this movement spreads to the rest of the world. Yes, I'm in the UK. Why should I care about the Federal Reserve? Well, because it affects the whole world. Ideally, we want to see all central banks abolished. Some people might think it's too much to ask that they're going to come out with CBDCs, but I don't know. I mean, who knows? This is encouraging, though, and I said I was going to recommend a few books. So I'm going to start, of course, with Dr. Ron Paul's End the Fed. It's a #1 New York Times best-selling author. It says here, Ron Paul, End the Fed. And what does it say here about the book? Or what does it say in the inside jacket? Most Americans simply accept the Federal Reserve as an indispensable institution, the custodian of the nation's money stock, without which our country's economy could not function. But now is the right time to question the very existence of the Fed and the critical role it has had in bringing our nation to the brink of economic ruin. The truth is, it is pointless to have a serious economic debate without considering the Fed's role in it all. And I would say that the purpose of the Fed, and I've spoken about this when I recommended the book Our Crowd by Stephen Birmingham, is that is an instrument of the bankers. And talking about the bankers, I recommend this one as well. The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. It tells you everything, the story, the backstory prior to the Federal Reserve Act, how the bankers met secretly, a conspiracy basically, at a private club on Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia. They took a private train from New York, or Hoboken, actually, New Jersey, all the way to Georgia. People like Warburgs and the Schiffs and the Rockefellers, they all met to, and also Senator Aldrich, they all met to write the blueprint for the Federal Reserve. This was in 1910. So yeah, the purpose of the Federal Reserve is that the bankers, back in 1907, there was a major collapse, banking collapse, market collapse, and J.P. Morgan had to bail out the whole banking system, and they were sick and tired of having to do that, even though it was really their fault for creating the bubbles. So they came up with the idea, let's create a central bank like in Europe, and whenever we have a crisis, we'll get the taxpayer to bail us out, basically socialize the losses. And how does that happen? Well, the government issues debt to bail out the banks, and the debt, of course, inflates the currency, and taxpayers eventually have to pay interest on that debt through taxation, and that's how it works. And then when the banks make huge profits, they keep it all. They don't give it to the taxpayer. So that's a really good book to learn about that. There's another one And some people consider G. Edward Griffin the pioneer of exposing the Fed, and I think he is a pioneer, but there's someone even before G. Edward Griffin that I consider the original pioneer, and it's Eustace Mullins. I'm not sure how easy it is to get this one, The Secrets of the Federal Reserve. And he was advised or told by Ezra Pound, the poet, American poet, back after World War II, to investigate the Federal Reserve. And this is another great book here. And the other one, and this one here has got to do a little bit with what's going on the LBMA, or the London Bullion Market Association, which is basically the bullion banks in London. And ever since I broke the news that came out in the FT, and why do I say broke the news? Well, because I think I was one of the first YouTubers or social media influencers to see that article on Friday the 29th of January in the FT about the shortage and about the fact that it was taking the Bank of England 4 to 8 weeks to deliver the gold. And I said that that was very significant. It was probably the biggest news in the gold market since Gordon Brown announced back in '99 he was going to sell half the UK's gold. So what am I saying here? Well, since that day I made that video, and I'm going to put it up here in the cards as well. Gold is up like $130, and I think it's far from over. This short squeeze on the bullion banks in London, and I think a lot of the gold is going to flow back to the United States, because as we saw last night in the live stream, the Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, wants to monetize the Treasury's liquid assets, and the most liquid asset they have on their balance sheet is gold. You might say, well, it's cash. Well, but that's monetized already. And they need the gold back into Fort Knox, because unfortunately the Federal Reserve, along with the Treasury, they've been leasing out and selling the gold for decades in order to control the price. And that's why the deep state is not happy about DOGE, because it's exposing all the nefarious and corrupt activity of the deep state. So this book here is entitled The Empire of the City, The Secret History of British Financial Power by E.C. Knut. So this will help you understand how influential the City of London is, not just in the UK, but around the world, in the US, and why what's happening now with the LBMA could really, it won't end the City of London, but it's going to make it a lot less influential, in my opinion. So, yeah, this one. And the last one is to do a little bit more with the globalists and the fact that they're like on the back foot. I mean, for example, I saw this post yesterday from the Council on Foreign Relations, from their magazine called Foreign Affairs. And it says Trump's administration will come to an end eventually, as will his MAGA movement. Afterward, the American people will have to rebuild what he destroyed, a government able to administer the country in the interest of its people. It's a big joke for Foreign Affairs to come out and say this. And why do I say that? Well, because I have done my research about the Council on Foreign Relations, and I know that it was created as a proxy for the Royal Institute for International Affairs in London, aka Chatham House. And it's a foundation. And why do they create the CFR and Foreign Affairs? Well, to control American foreign policy from London. So with the money, with the city, and controlling foreign affairs, you control the United States, you control the world. And I think it's for those of us who know about the CFR and foreign affairs, it's really comical that they're saying this, that that they will help restore the interests of the American people. Well, they've been against the interests of the American people for like over 100 years. They've been instigating all the wars and conflicts around the world, the CFR or Foreign Affairs and Chatham House. So this is a good book to read about not just the CFR, but all the foundations as well that are involved in this, foundations that have been created by people like the Rockefellers, the Carnegies. Have a look, go on Wikipedia and have a read. But if you can get this book as well, which is probably quite difficult, you can read about all of this. And here on page 191, chapter 8, Eustace Mullins talks about the foundations, the tax-free foundations. And I think they should go after the tax-free foundations. I think they are doing it already indirectly via USAID, but we're seeing that it's nothing but a gravy train for the people who run the foundations, and also it's an instrument to influence America's role in other parts of the world. So that's it then. As I said earlier, a lot happening, just like Lenin said, it's happening in weeks instead of decades. So let's quickly check the markets this morning. It's 8:32 a.m. London time. So spot gold is at 28.94. The high is 28.96. So we're approaching 2,900. And what do I think? Well, I think we're just in the beginning. And as I've said, gold and silver are just like solid items. They're solid money. They don't really do anything. What's happening here is that the fraudulent nature of the whole system, the fraudulent nature of the deep state, not just in the US, but all over the West, is coming out. People are losing faith and confidence in the system. Even Donald Trump, President Trump, said yesterday that the Treasury might have less debt, that there's a lot of fraud going on in the U.S. Treasury. Well, for the U.S. president to say that, it means that he doesn't have much faith and confidence in his own Treasury. And I think that's serious. So that's what's going on. That's why gold and silver are continuing to go up, because the fiat currencies are going down. It's just a reflection of that. So silver is up 38 cents, or just over 1%, just like gold. We want to see silver, of course, outperform gold. It's at 32.15. The high's been 32.22. This is the spot price. What about the stock market? Well, the Dow futures is up 53. NASDAQ 100 futures is up 108. S&P is up 16. The currencies are actually pretty steady, with the exception of the dollar versus the yen. The dollar is up 0.75% versus the yen. WTI crude is up 0.2%, 71.26. And one commodity or metal that has done quite well of late is copper. As you can see by this chart, copper is starting to take off. It's almost approaching, close to approaching the highs from last year at around 480. And this is high-grade copper, of course. And why is this significant? Well, because it's pointing to inflationary pressures, I would say. And of course, gold has been leading the way. And yeah, so there you go. I'm going to stop right here and wish you all a very good day and a very good start to the week. Take care. Bye.